Think for a moment. Think about how many times you already knew what you should do, yet you did nothing. Imagine how many opportunities quietly disappeared, not because you were incapable, not because you lacked intelligence, but because you hesitated, because you thought too much, because you waited for certainty in a world that never offers it. Today, we are going to confront one of the most silent, destructive, and socially accepted enemies of human potential: overthinking. And I promise you this: what you will hear toward the end of this journey will be the most important and powerful insight of all, one that can radically change how you approach your life, your decisions, and your future. Imagine a mind so active that it becomes its own prison. A mind that analyzes, replays, doubts, anticipates, and catastrophizes until action feels impossible. This is not intelligence. This is paralysis disguised as wisdom. Overthinking convinces you that you are being careful, responsible, and deep, while quietly stealing your time, your courage, and your momentum. Many of the greatest thinkers in history warned us about this trap, yet modern life has turned it into a virtue. Today, we begin dismantling it. Before we go deeper, I invite you to pause for a brief moment and support this journey. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and write a comment sharing one thought that keeps you stuck in your own mind. What you will discover here may change the way you understand action, fear, and self-trust more than you expect. Overthinking is not a flaw of weak minds. It is often the burden of highly reflective, sensitive, and intelligent individuals. The problem is not thinking itself. The problem is confusing thinking with living. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche warned that excessive consciousness can become a disease. When awareness loses its connection to instinct and action, the individual becomes divided against himself. He thinks, but he does not move. He understands, but he does not live. Modern psychology echoes this idea. Carl Jung believed that neurosis often emerges when life energy is blocked. When what wants to be lived is endlessly postponed, analyzed, and suppressed, the psyche turns inward and begins to consume itself. Overthinking is not safety. It is resistance to life. Ask yourself honestly, how many decisions are you postponing because you want to feel ready? How many projects are unfinished because you want them to be perfect? How many conversations are unsaid because you fear the outcome? Overthinking promises control, but delivers stagnation. It tells you that clarity comes before action, when in reality clarity is born from action. Consider this paradox. You cannot think your way into confidence. Confidence is not a prerequisite for action. Confidence is the result of action. The psychologist William James stated that action often precedes emotion. We do not act because we feel brave. We feel brave because we act. Waiting to feel ready is one of the most common illusions of the modern mind. Overthinking also feeds on fear of judgment. We simulate future scenarios endlessly, imagining criticism, failure, rejection, and embarrassment. But these imagined futures feel real to the nervous system. The body reacts as if the threat is present now, and so you freeze. Yet the cruel irony is this: by not acting, you guarantee a different kind of failure, a quiet one, the failure of unrealized potential. Reflect deeply on this question and answer it honestly in your mind. Is your thinking helping you move forward, or is it helping you avoid discomfort? Growth always carries uncertainty. Action always carries risk, but stagnation carries regret. And regret is far heavier than failure. The mind loves complexity because complexity delays responsibility. If the problem is complicated enough, you never have to act. Overthinking becomes a sophisticated excuse, a socially acceptable way to remain stuck while appearing thoughtful. But life does not reward those who understand everything. Life rewards those who move. As we continue, you will begin to see that overthinking is not something you defeat by thinking less, but by shifting where your trust lies. And later, we will confront the most powerful realization of all: why action itself is not just a tool for success, but a profound psychological reset that rewires fear, identity, and self-belief from the inside out. But before we reach that, ask yourself one final question for now. What is one small action you already know you should take, yet keep postponing? Hold that question with you, because what comes next will challenge the way you relate to fear, effort, and momentum in ways you may not be expecting. If you approve this first part, tell me to continue, and we will move deeper into the hidden psychological mechanisms that keep you trapped in your head and how decisive action begins to dissolve them. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Tahadnika, think about how often your mind drifts into the future, rehearsing possibilities that may never happen. Overthinking lives almost entirely in imagined tomorrows. It borrows problems that do not yet exist and treats them as emergencies. This is why it feels exhausting. You are not tired from action, you are tired from simulation. The mind is running countless scenarios while the body remains still. And the longer this imbalance continues, the heavier everything feels. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He wrote that most of our suffering comes not from events themselves, but from our judgments about them. Overthinking magnifies judgment. It takes a single uncertainty and turns it into a mental labyrinth. Instead of asking what is the next step, the mind asks, what if everything goes wrong? This shift alone is enough to paralyze even the most capable person. Modern neuroscience helps explain why this happens. The brain is designed to predict in order to protect, but when prediction becomes excessive, it activates fear circuits repeatedly without resolution. The psychologist Daniel Kahneman described how the mind prefers coherence over truth. Overthinking creates stories that feel logical, even when they are false. The story might be, I am not ready yet, or I need more information, or this must be perfect. These stories feel responsible, but they are often fear wearing the mask of reason. Ask yourself this carefully. How many times have you waited for more clarity, only to realize later that clarity never came on its own? Clarity follows movement. It does not precede it. When you act, reality responds. When you think endlessly, nothing answers back. Action creates feedback. Thought alone creates echoes. There is another hidden cost of overthinking that few people talk about. It erodes self-trust. Every time you hesitate after knowing what to do, you send yourself a silent message. I do not trust my own judgment. Over time, this message becomes an identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who thinks but does not act. And identities, once formed, are difficult to escape. The psychologist Albert Bandura introduced the concept of self-efficacy, the belief in your ability to influence outcomes through your actions. This belief is not built through contemplation. It is built through experience. Small actions taken consistently teach the nervous system that you can handle uncertainty. Overthinking does the opposite. It trains avoidance. Notice something important. Overthinking often increases when something matters deeply. You overthink your purpose, your relationships, your future, because you care. But caring without acting slowly turns into self-sabotage. Fear of doing the wrong thing becomes stronger than desire to do anything at all. And so nothing happens. Consider how children learn. They do not overanalyze before walking. They fall, adjust, and try again. Learning through action is the most natural process there is. Yet as adults, we reverse this order. We demand certainty before movement. But certainty is a luxury life rarely provides. Overthinking also feeds perfectionism. Perfectionism says, wait until conditions are ideal. But ideal conditions are imaginary. Life is always incomplete, messy, and uncertain. The philosopher Voltaire warned that the perfect is the enemy of the good. Waiting for perfection often means never beginning. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. If you continue thinking instead of acting, where will you be in 1 year? The same thoughts will still be there, the same doubts will return, because thought without action does not resolve itself. It loops. Action breaks loops. And here is a crucial insight. Action does not eliminate fear. It teaches you that fear is survivable. Each step forward rewires your relationship with discomfort. The mind learns that uncertainty does not equal danger. This is not motivation. This is conditioning. As we move forward, we will uncover why decisive action is not about willpower, but about identity. Why the people who seem fearless are not braver than you, but more practiced in acting despite fear. And why the most powerful shift you can make is not thinking differently, but acting before your mind agrees. Reflect on this as we continue. What identity are you reinforcing every day through hesitation, and what identity could you build through action, starting now? If you approve this part, tell me to continue, and we will go deeper into the transformative power of action itself and why it reshapes your mind faster than any insight ever could. Do not wait. The time will never be just right. Napoleon Hill. There is a moment, subtle but decisive, when thinking turns into avoidance. It does not announce itself loudly. It feels reasonable, it feels cautious, it feels intelligent. But beneath it, something deeper is happening. You are protecting an identity that feels safe. Overthinking is not only about fear of failure, it is also about fear of transformation. Because action changes who you are, and the mind resists change even when change is necessary. Every time you act, you confront uncertainty directly. And uncertainty threatens the illusion of control the mind desperately wants to maintain. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard described anxiety as the dizziness of freedom. The moment you realize you can act, choose, and change your life, anxiety appears. Overthinking becomes a way to escape that dizziness by postponing choice. But postponing choice is still a choice. It is the choice to remain the same. One of the most dangerous myths about action is the belief that decisive people are free of doubt. They are not. They simply do not negotiate endlessly with doubt. They move while doubt is present. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to let fear have the final word. Psychologically, action interrupts rumination. Rumination is repetitive thinking with no resolution. The mind loops the same concerns without new input. Action forces new information into the system. When you act, even imperfectly, you create evidence. Evidence weakens irrational fear far more effectively than reassurance ever could. The psychologist B.F. Skinner showed that behavior shapes future behavior. Momentum is real. Action today makes action tomorrow easier. Inaction today makes inaction tomorrow more likely. This is how habits are formed, not by intention, but by repetition. Overthinking often masks itself as preparation, but preparation without execution slowly turns into paralysis. Notice how often your mind asks for guarantees. Will this work? Will I fail? Will I regret this? But life offers no guarantees. Waiting for certainty in an uncertain world is a strategy that guarantees stagnation. The only certainty available is movement itself. There is also a deeper emotional layer beneath overthinking. Many people fear that if they act and fail, it will confirm their worst beliefs about themselves, that they are not enough, that they are incapable. So they delay action to protect self-image. But this protection comes at a high cost. You never give yourself the chance to disprove those beliefs. The psychologist Carol Dweck emphasized that growth occurs through engagement, not avoidance. A fixed identity is fragile. A growing identity is resilient. Action builds resilience because it exposes you to challenge, feedback, and adaptation. Overthinking preserves fragility by keeping you untested. Reflect on this carefully. The pain you are avoiding by not acting does not disappear. It transforms into a quieter pain. The pain of knowing you could have tried. The pain of unrealized possibilities. This pain accumulates slowly, often unnoticed, until one day it becomes regret. Another illusion overthinking creates is the belief that you need to understand yourself fully before acting. But self-knowledge is not achieved in isolation. You discover who you are by observing how you respond to life. Identity is revealed through action, not contemplation. When you stop overthinking and act, something profound happens. Your nervous system recalibrates. What once felt threatening becomes manageable. What once felt overwhelming becomes familiar. Fear loses its authority not because it disappears, but because it is no longer obeyed. Ask yourself this now. What would your life look like if you trusted action more than thought? If you treated thinking as a tool, not a refuge? If you allowed movement to teach you instead of demanding certainty first? As we move forward, we will arrive at the most important realization of all, the one that ties everything together. The understanding that action is not merely a means to an end, but a transformation in itself, a shift that changes how you experience fear, identity, and meaning at the deepest level. If you approve this part, tell me to continue, and we will complete the journey with the final and most powerful insight. Man is condemned to be free, because once thrown into the world, he is responsible for everything he does. Jean-Paul Sartre. Now we arrive at the most important and powerful realization of all, the one that transforms everything you have heard so far into something actionable, irreversible, and deeply liberating. Overthinking is not simply a mental habit. It is a way of relating to existence itself. And action is not merely a strategy for productivity. Action is a philosophical stance toward life. When you act, you are not just doing something. You are making a statement about who you are. You are declaring without words that uncertainty will not rule you, that fear will not be the final authority, that your life will not be lived entirely inside your head. This is the truth most people never confront. Overthinking persists, not because you lack insight, but because insight alone does not alter identity. Identity changes only through behavior. You can understand fear perfectly and still be ruled by it. You can analyze your patterns endlessly and still repeat them. But the moment you act differently even once, the story you tell yourself about who you are begins to crack. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre argued that existence precedes essence. You are not born with a fixed nature. You define yourself through choices. Every action is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. Overthinking delays that vote. Action casts it. This is why action feels so threatening, because it removes the illusion of neutrality. As long as you think, you can pretend nothing is decided. You can stay suspended between versions of yourself. But the moment you act, ambiguity collapses. You become responsible. And responsibility is terrifying to a mind that seeks safety. Yet this is also where freedom lives. Most people believe freedom means having endless options. In reality, endless options create paralysis. Freedom emerges when you commit, move, and engage with consequences. Action narrows possibilities, but it deepens meaning. A life lived entirely in potential remains shallow. A life lived through action gains weight, texture, and reality. There is another critical insight here. Overthinking often disguises itself as self-improvement. You consume ideas, philosophies, strategies, and insights, believing you are evolving. But without action, this accumulation becomes intellectual clutter. Wisdom that is not embodied becomes another form of avoidance. The psychologist Viktor Frankl observed that meaning is not found through reflection alone, but through responsibility. Meaning arises when you take responsibility for something beyond yourself. A task, a value, a commitment. Action binds you to meaning. Overthinking dissolves it. Consider how much of your mental suffering comes from unresolved energy. Things you want to say, but do not. Steps you want to take, but postpone. Lives are not ruined by one wrong action, as often as they are eroded by endless inaction. And the tragedy is that inaction rarely feels dramatic. It feels safe, reasonable, invisible, until time passes. Action, even imperfect action, has a cleansing effect on the psyche. It grounds you in the present. It interrupts rumination. It creates a dialogue with reality instead of a monologue inside your head. When you act, life responds. And that response, even when painful, is clarifying. Here is the final and most powerful truth. You do not stop overthinking by controlling your thoughts. You stop overthinking by changing your relationship with fear, and you change your relationship with fear by acting while it is present. Fear does not disappear first. It follows action, not the other way around. This reverses everything society teaches you. You are told to wait until you feel confident, until you feel ready, until you feel certain. But confidence is a byproduct. Readiness is a myth. Certainty is an illusion. Action is the only real beginning. When you act, you teach your nervous system something crucial. That discomfort is survivable. That uncertainty does not equal catastrophe. That you are capable of adapting. This learning cannot be downloaded, it must be lived. Think about this carefully. Every time you delay action, you strengthen the habit of hesitation. Every time you act despite doubt, you weaken fear's authority. Over time, fear still appears, but it no longer commands obedience. It becomes background noise instead of a dictator. This is why some people seem calm in chaos. Not because they think less, but because they have acted more. They have trained themselves through experience to trust movement over rumination. Now ask yourself the most honest question of all. What is your life costing you by waiting? Not in theory, but in days, energy, and unrealized experiences. What version of yourself is quietly fading because you keep postponing becoming them? You do not need a dramatic transformation. You need a decision, one step, one action taken before your mind feels ready. That is how identities shift. That is how momentum begins. That is how thought regains its proper role as a tool, not a cage. Stop overthinking does not mean abandon reflection. It means stop worshipping it. Think enough to choose, then move. Let action finish the work your thoughts cannot. Your life will never ask you to be fearless. It will ask you to be willing. Willing to act without guarantees. Willing to look foolish. Willing to fail forward instead of standing still. In the end, the difference between those who change and those who remain trapped is not intelligence, talent, or opportunity. It is the courage to act before certainty arrives. And that courage is not something you find, it is something you practice. Now the question is no longer why you overthink. The question is this: what will you do next? Thanks for looking.